A Taiku is an unanswered and unresolved question in the Babylonian Talmud. When there is a discussion, a question is asked, and there is no answer to it, there's something called Taiku, which is an acronym for Tishbi Yataris Kushios Vebayos, which means Tishbi, the Tishbite, which is a reference to Elijah the prophet. Yatares will answer. Kushios, questions. Vebayos, and Kushios are difficulties or questions. Vebayos are quandaries, or things that we want to find out, we want to know the answer to. And this Taiku means let it stand. Let it stand a question unresolved until ostensibly the coming of Messiah. And Elijah the prophet, who is said to herald the Messiah and his coming, is the tradition is that he will answer these questions, all the questions. And over the past 9 months or so, I have been going through one of these Taikus a day. In the Babylonian Talmud, I'm told that there's only Taikus in the Babylonian Talmud, not in the Jerusalem Talmud. And there's, I guess there's various reasons given for that. Some say that the Jerusalem Talmud was closer to the, there were less, I'm not even sure what that answer. I was going to say an answer, but I don't even know if that's an answer, because what I'm told is that there are unresolved questions, but they just don't use the word Taiku. Okay, don't want to get sidetracked, but basically, someone wrote a book called Taiku, and it was a compilation. It's a rabbi, and I think from Ramat Beit Shemesh, named Rabbi Aharon Yehoshua Pessin, and he wrote a book called Taiku, and it's a compilation of all of these Taikus in the Shas. And I became interested in the book and just knowing all these Taikus, and he makes a point in his introduction. He says, if Elijah comes tomorrow, let's say, and you have the opportunity to ask the questions, are you going to be able to ask him all the questions? Do you know any of the Taikus? I had to admit to myself, I didn't know any of them. I mean, you go through them when you learn them, but you don't remember them. You don't, hold on to them. It's saying, Elijah, what about if someone leaves the synagogue? If between when the Balkori is reading, we know that we're not allowed to leave in the middle of when the Balkori is reading. Some rabbis waited between aliyahs, or between parakim, I think they call it. That's fine. But what about if you had to leave, if you were able to get out of the door between verses? Can you leave between a verse? That's a Taiku. That's the first Taiku. And it's asked by Rav Papa in Tractate Brachot 8a, about 2 lines from the bottom of the page. And the next Taiku, I think it's on page 25, Kafeh, either A or B. I have to check it out, but it's about stepping on excrement while praying. There's a halacha that you can't pray next to excrement. But then there's this question arose about someone who steps on it, and then can they cover it? If they step on it, is it considered covered, or is it still considered? Is it not? Is it exposed? Is it refuse, which is a disgrace? One is praying, but there's a small amount, let's say, and you're covering it with your shoe. I think they said sandal there. Yeah, they wore sandals in those days. But anyway, is that considered cover that you can pray on that? And I had a personal issue with that Taiku because, you can always just take off your shoes and walk away. I mean, or clean your shoes off. I don't understand why you have to be standing on poop. And I didn't get that one, but I guess that's my own. And many of these Taikus have like a Taiku A or Taiku B, like Taiku like 103B or Taiku whatever B or C. Like my own personal Taikus on the Taiku. So I think that if we're asking Taikus already, we can ask our own Taikus as well. How about our own personal Taikus in our own life? The mysteries of how our life turned out, what happens in our life, the good and the bad. Probably we're more curious about the bad, what we call bad, or the less than positive or whatever. The positive, of course, we need to have gratitude and we should have gratitude for, but sometimes in our life, let's face it, weird stuff does happen. And these are what I call personal Taikus. These Taikus will also be answered. So that's just really explaining my interest in Taikus in general. Okay? So I usually don't do this long introduction, but for some reason, and I think now I know why, for this Taiku, which is the 273rd Taiku, the 273rd Taiku is, according to this book by Rabbi Aharon Yehoshua Pessin, the 273rd Taiku is in the Babylonian Talmud is Chulin 70a. Now, this is a little weird bit of trivia, but these little in this hat, there's actually 70. I counted. There's 70 little balls here. I like to count stuff, and you might be wondering why I'm wearing this hat. It might look a little silly, and it does look silly, and I think that's the point. This was my outfit for Purim this year. I wore this on Purim, and it's written in it's a midrash in Yalkut Shimoni. I saw it inside. I believe it's in Yalkut Shimoni on Mishlei. It's a midrash in Mishlei, and this in the Simon is 944. And it says that all the holidays in the time of the end, the redemption, which is what these Taikus are about. The Taikus, right, will be answered in the redemption time. And it says that all of the holidays will be nullified, or will pass away, or will be fulfilled, or whatever, but Purim will always stay. And that's a kind of a curious statement, and people have explained it different ways. But however you want to say it, Purim, there's something about it that is so holy that it lasts. Not that the other holidays are not holy, but maybe there's something maybe I used the wrong word there. They're all holy, but there's something about Purim that is special, in that it's unassuming. It's like it's a holiday that you can't really. There's a lot of mystery to it. You can't really figure it out. It's just one day you read the Megillah. It's a big gust of wind, and figuratively speaking, and it just goes. It comes and goes so fast, and there's so much light, at least from my experience, on that day on Purim. It's so intense, and this year in Jerusalem it was really something else. It's really raining. Wow. Where was I? Right, so Purim. So that light of Purim that happened this year in 5786, I didn't want to let it go. I wanted to extend that light until Passover. So that's the reason for this hat. Now, the reason why I think this is long introduction for the 273rd Taiku, which will be answered when the Messiah comes. The Taikus are answered when the Messiah comes, and this Taiku is on 70A, and there's 70 balls in his hat, which itself is like an off-the-wall idea to say, right? Like, who cares about how many balls are on your hat? But it's kind of the idea. It's kind of shtus that you're focused on so deeply that it's really, you start to really go so deep into the shtus that it becomes like a brilliance. But anyway, 273 is the gematria of the word gematria. The numerical value of the word gematria spelled in its most conventional way with an aleph at the end. In Israel, modern Israelis spelled gematria with a hey at the end. That's how I've seen it. But in the Talmud, it's written gematria with a wow, thunder. 273, right? Gematria. It's raining. There's Chodesh Nisan, thundering, Shiach times. Wow. Deep. Okay. So here we are in Chulin 70a with Boy Rava. Boy Rava, Korcha Besod Besiv Mahu Betalisoi Mahu. A firstborn animal is consecrated by virtue of the fact that its birth is the first in which the womb of the mother opens, as indicated by the verse, "Consecrate to me every firstborn, that which opens the womb." Exodus 13, verse 2. Concerning this condition, Rava raises a dilemma. If one wrapped the fetus in the bast of a palm tree while it was still in the womb, and it therefore did not come in contact with the opening of the womb directly when it emerged. Interesting. What is the halacha with regard to whether it is consecrated? Likewise, if one wrapped it in his robe when it emerged, what's the halacha? A talus, it says. He wrapped a fetus in a talus when it emerged. Do you have to consecrate it? Because it never actually exited the womb. It went straight from in the womb to a talus, even though I would think that it still exited, I mean. But apparently they didn't think so. Probably didn't think so. B'shilyaso mahu, b'shilyaso ochehu, b'shilyacheres mahu. Wow, that's really interesting. Rava adds, if it emerged wrapped in its afterbirth, what's the halacha? So it has some kind of like, the afterbirth is some kind of like thin membrane or like some material from its fleshy material that's on it that covers it, and then it's not really seeing it doesn't open the womb. Now this is really, I don't know if this is physically possible, but the Gemara says that how could you suggest that being wrapped in its afterbirth would pose a problem? That is its natural manner of birth, and the childbirth, after the childbirth, is consequently not considered an interposition. Accordingly, it is considered as though it was a direct contact with the opening of the womb. Rather, Rava's dilemma must be as follows. If it emerged wrapped in the afterbirth of a different animal, that just stam doesn't make any sense. How is that possible? How can it be wrapped in an afterbirth of a different animal? How could you suggest that? That's my own Taiku on this Taiku. This would be Taiku 273a. Or maybe 273b if you want to say. Okay, next. Karachtu ve'achazatu ve'otziatu ma'u echidami idanavak derech resha patarte edanavak derech margolotav. Another dilemma, if one wrapped it in one's hands and held it and brought it out in that fashion, such that the fetus did not come in direct contact with the opening of the womb, what is the halacha? With regard to all these dilemmas, the Gemara asks, what are the circumstances? If the fetus had already partially emerged head first, and then one wrapped the body, which was still inside the womb, the halacha in such a case is clear. Since its head emerged, it is already considered to have been born and to have opened up the womb, and it is duly consecrated. Rather, the dilemma is in a case where it partially emerged, hind legs first, and the majority of the body, which was still in the womb, was wrapped before it emerged. Balasu hulda vihotziatu mahu hotziatu papatke elabelatu hotziatu ichnisatu vikiatu las manas ichnisatu vikiatu viatemelav mahu. Rava raises additional dilemmas. If a weasel entered the womb, this is crazy. If a weasel entered the womb and swallowed the fetus there, a weasel cannot swallow a fetus. I'm sorry. If a weasel entered the womb, are you serious? If a weasel entered the womb and swallowed the fetus there, and then exited the womb, if a weasel entered the womb and swallowed the fetus there, I'm trying to imagine this. A weasel somehow got into a woman. How'd that happen? I mean, who's delivering this baby? You know what I mean? Like, if a weasel entered the womb and swallowed the fetus there, and then exited the womb, bringing the fetus out in its stomach, what's the halacha? The Gemara interjects, is there any doubt about a case where the weasel brought the fetus out in its stomach? In such a case, it is the weasel that brought it out, and it is certainly not regarded as though the fetus opened the womb. Rather, the dilemma concerns a case where the weasel swallowed the fetus and brought it out, and then brought it back into the womb and vomited it out while inside. This is completely insane. Rather, the dilemma concerns the case where the weasel swallowed the fetus, brought it out, and then brought it back into the womb, and then vomited it out while inside the womb. And the fetus subsequently emerged of its own accord. What's the halacha in this case? Hidbig shnei rachamim v'yotz mizev nichnas lo zemahu yidei poto delav yidei lo pato oy dilma delav yidei nami pato Taiku. Another dilemma. If one pressed together the openings of two wombs of two animals, giving birth to firstborns, and a fetus exited from the womb of this animal and entered the womb of that animal, and then emerged from the womb of the second animal, after which the second animal gave birth to its fetus. What's the halacha with regard to whether the fetus of the second animal is consecrated as a firstborn? Is the womb considered to have opened only when its own fetus emerges from inside, but a fetus that is not its own is not halakhically considered to have opened the womb? Or perhaps even a fetus that is not its own is also considered to have opened the womb? The Gemara does not provide a resolution for these dilemmas and concludes the dilemma shall stand unresolved until the coming of Messiah, the son of David, and the son of Joseph, Elijah the prophet. And it's still my question, why Elijah, not the Messiah? We'll have to find out, but this was a really good one. This is a very, very one of the more entertaining ones. The 273rd Taiku in the Babylonian Talmud, Chulin 70a.